Hello everybody, Carrie here. Thanks for joining me for this presentation of Sensory Soundness Evaluation and Mapping Reference Guide. For a long time I've been working on sensory soundness and mapping and putting together a bunch of behind the scenes data for this as I work through and put together a scoring system and a mapping system that made sense. And it's been a lifelong, basically it feels like a lifelong project. And I'm very happy to present to you today. I wrote up again, this is a sensory soundness evaluation and mapping reference guide. I'm going to make this transcript I'm going to share with you today available on the blog as well, so that you can take your time and look through it and read through it as many times as you like. But I also wanted to share with you personally, from me to you, you to me, this whole thing. I'm very excited about it. So let's get started. Okay, so here we go. Sensory Soundness Evaluation and Mapping Reference Guide. I'm going to start with this. Because performance is driven by emotion, talent is fully realized only through mental aptitude. For where the physical horse may be athletic, it is psychology that determines athleticism. It's been true for everything, whether it's human or horse. The sensory system is the doorway which performance emerges, connecting the physical world with the emotional horse. Now think about that. That's really important. The sensory system is the doorway through which performance emerges as it connects the physical world with the emotional horse. That is that nexus, that binding factor. What is it about here that allows me to operate out here and to optimize my physical talent? It is the sensory system. So I'll read it again. Because performance is driven by emotion, talent is fully realized only through mental aptitude. For where the physical horse may be athletic, it is psychology that determines athleticism. The sensory system is the doorway through which performance emerges, connecting the physical world with the emotional horse. Well, let's move on. Let me tell you a little bit about the whole thing here of sensory soundness from my perspective. Sensory soundness mapping is the process of analyzing the merger between the physical senses and the horse's unique emotional interpretation of them, which is called the psychosensory. As I was doing this and going along, I had to ask myself the question that I myself had to answer is, what exactly is sensory soundness mapping? What am I doing here? How are we getting to this? And this is why I put this together, to share this with you. And I'm really happy I did, because now we have it in one spot. Sensory soundness mapping is the process of analyzing the merger between the physical senses and the horse's unique emotional interpretation of them, which is called the psychosensory. Every horse has 6 standard sensory aspect zones that, in natural design, are equally balanced and functionally proportionate in natural design. These are divided by sensory lead changes. Remember that term, sensory lead changes, the location where stimuli transitions from one zone to the next. Okay, one zone to the next. Sensory lead change, or as I dub them, SLC. However, for the emotionally driven horse, and we know this all too well, the physical standard, the ideal, and psychosensory, the actual, rarely align, save for the most high-level herd dynamic horses. In fact, less than 5% of all horses will have both alignment and uninterrupted functionality of the 6-step sensory sequence shown. Less than 5%. Okay? Less than 5% of horses are at the elite levels of high functioning and can operate independent of herd nature. That's one of the hardest things for a horse to do. You take a herd horse, or herd animal, or herd wired psychology, and extract them from that, and you ask them to operate and function and learn and to perform and to handle stress, all these things devoid of that herd structure. The key for them to be able to do this is going to be funneled through their sensory system. How well are they taking the reality of what's out here in the physical world and putting it in here, the process of the psychology. It happens through a natural sequence. And that natural sequence is a 6-step process. And it starts with survey, as you can see below. Survey, orienting, investigatory, absorb, interpret, respond. Let's go through that again. Survey, orienting, investigate, absorb, interpret, respond. Survey, orient, investigate, absorb, interpret, respond. Boom, 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 boom. It happens really fast. It happens very, very fast for a horse, this whole process. But, the process of sensory mapping and going through and dissecting this is taking these pieces step by step and analyzing each one of them and how they function and how they're not only functioning in relationship to the world around them, but with the relationship to horse, with the horse, and with each other. When your horse's psychosensory map is overlain upon the standardized ideal map. So I have a map that you're going to see is the standard map, and then we have, this is the ideal and this is the actual. So it's going to lay over top, and we're going to see how that overlays. When your horse's psychosensory map is overlain upon the standardized ideal map, it reveals a multitude of things about your horse's psychological capacity and their view of the world. This self-portrait of the horse brings them into view in ways never before possible, allowing us to identify things like stress accumulation, which we know is the underwriter of training and performance issues, behavior inconsistencies, natural strengths and weaknesses, emotional energy distribution and leaks, very important, and how, where, and why your horse is who they are. One of the most important functions of the sensory system is the clearing of space for the body to move through. Quite an important thing for an athlete, don't you think? This allows for fluent, uninterrupted physical movement. If you don't have this fluent physical movement in your physically sound horse, then it's very likely that you have a sensory unsound horse, okay? When I talk about that space, people who have had a chance to come to one of my events talking about applied sensory soundness, one thing that we cover is how the space between the psychology and the body have to have this cushion. So this is the sensory system, this is the psychology, clearing the space for the body to move through, and it allows this cushion, okay? And in between here, as it gets closer and closer, this is pressure. Think of pressure and stress, and you get kickback, you get disrupted physical movement, you get all kinds of things going on in the horse's psychology. They have a difficult time processing, and when we're asking them to perform and achieve tasks, when this is too close together, you get kickback, you get bumps, okay, and you get stress buildup. Think about this as pressure. The more space you have between the mind and the body, the less pressure you have within the horse. Okay, the less pressure you have, the more fluent, the more fluency you have in physical motion. It's like a rhythmical dance. You want that space. Okay, and sensory soundness mapping, one of the key things that we do with that is we look for how much space is there, and then once we find that out, we put together a program to help the horse create more space. We want to keep the mind ahead of the body. We don't want the body ahead of the mind. How do I do it? Well, there's two ways, okay? And one of the ways is I can come to you and I will start the evaluation process with your horse and personally evaluate your horse, but I will also always take film footage. Film footage is very, very key. I bring that film footage back here to the office or wherever I'm at, and then I can study that and analyze that. And I've, over the last several years, analyzing film study analysis, I guess I could call it, has been such a groundbreaking thing for me because I can go frame by frame. I see things that I just can't see in the naked eye. I can feel a lot and see a lot with the naked eye, but there's a lot of corroborating evidence or evidence that shows otherwise than what you thought you saw when you get a chance to study the film. The other way to do it is, this is a service for anybody in the world from any place in the world. You can take your own video and you can send those to me to be analyzed and have your horse mapped through the magic of video. It's going to be the same process, except for you don't get to meet me. But you send the video in. Generally, I like to recommend a YouTube channel, a private or public, whichever you prefer, and that gives me access to this to your horse as I'm mapping it. And just so here on this YouTube channel, there is a video, a tutorial video on how to map your horse, and you can find that also in the services area where this service is talked about, the mapping service. There'll be a link to that as well, and this video should be on there soon too. Let's continue. How long has it taken me? A long time. It has taken me nearly my entire equestrian career to fully discover the sensory sequence and appreciate its true groundbreaking value and applications. I mean, to me, this is next level stuff, and I'm just so excited to be able to share it with you now and to continue to push it and to continue to develop it. I was never in pursuit of it. To be honest with you, I was never looking for something like this, but it was chasing after me all the while. It was always just right there. It wasn't until just a few years ago that I stopped and turned around to see it staring me in the face. Happens a lot in life, doesn't it? Only then did I realize that all my work in researching natural heart dynamics was leading to the moment where I understood that the true nature of behavioral genetics was at the nexus, again, that nexus was at the nexus of the emotional horse and their physical environment. That changed the course of my career and my life. Trust me, it changed everything for me. It led me into sensory soundness mapping. It led me on this path and opened up this incredible doorway of new discovery. And that's the beautiful thing I love about horses, and I think you'll agree. We all love horses so much, and one of the things is that they constantly offer an opportunity for us to learn. And one of the fun things for me, and I get a chance to share with more people this information and the information I've studied and learned over the years about horses and herd dynamics and psychology and all those things, is that, as many of you know, Life Through the Senses is another branch of what we're doing here at Sensory Soundness, which is the education platform, the online education platform, where I get a chance to share my knowledge and my own personal growth with my fellow students and my fellow scholars of the horse. And I definitely really appreciate that. And people ask me a lot about the applications of what all this is, and we're going to cover this as we go forward. But the further I got along with this, I realized that, it applies to everything. It applies to every discipline, to every sport, to every person involved in horses, because it's not about the discipline, it's about the horse. It's about what's happening here. It's about your horse. For me, it leads to more responsible breeding programs. We're not just putting together on paper this physical construct. We are putting together and we are studying the psychological aspects of the sensory system that allows these horses to function, in our world. It's such a key thing. Horse selection, discipline selection. Is the horse right for you? Is the horse right for the discipline? This is very important too. As humans, we all have our own emotional demands, whether we know it or not, and that's going to be taken in by the horse. How collaborative are we with our horse? Are we able to have a good partnership? Is their base value, is their benchmark value of their psychology befitting our own and our own goals? And also the discipline. We have to think about how disciplines, what is the emotional demands of the discipline? Yes, we know what the physical demands of every discipline are, the movements that it takes, the body structure that it takes, the fitness levels that it takes to get it done. But how much attention do we really pay to the psychological demands, the emotional demands? The sensory system and sensory mapping, the whole horse psychology, this whole thing about horse psychology and the behavioral genetics is about determining, does the horse have the psychological and the mental makeup to handle the emotional stresses that are going to be demanding in that discipline and to achieve our goals? We can save ourselves and our horses a whole lot of problems and a whole lot of money if we understand if the pressing training and performance demands and everything in between are going to be, if the horse can handle that. So that's very, very important.